Hello, we are very fortunate today to have with us a very distinguished guest, former Chief Election Commissioner of India, S.Y. Quraishi Sahab. Mr. Quraishi will be talking to us on different aspects and challenges of conducting elections in the world's largest democracy. Welcome to India News Stream, Mr. Quraishi.
Thank you.
Can we begin the conversation with the subject which is on the people's mind these days?
Please.
The Bihar elections are coming, and they are being held in an atmosphere when the COVID pandemic is prevailing. So there is a question whether they can be held with giving an equal playing field to all the parties and all the stakeholders concerned.
Yes, this question has been in the air for about 3-4 months. I have written many articles on this. I have spoken on the subject many times that there is no question of postponement of Bihar elections because in the last 4 months, at least 34 countries of the world have conducted elections. If they can conduct elections, why can't India? India is one of the best election commission in the world. Now, the most talked about was South Korean election, and they had the highest ever turnout, and they have the same problem as we. So, therefore, postponement was certainly not an option. And what created the confusion was that some by-elections were postponed. Now, there is a world of difference between by-elections and a general election. Because suppose 3, 4, 5, 10 seats are vacant in a Vidhan Sabha, it doesn't stop the Vidhan Sabha from functioning. It doesn't stop the government. Whereas if a general election to an assembly is not held, there has to be a president's rule. It creates a constitutional crisis because not for a day there can be a situation when election has not been held within the 6 months which are prescribed. And that is a constitutional obligation that between two sessions of the House, there should not be a gap of more than 6 months, which means Election Commission has to make sure that the new House is ready well before the end of 6 months. So, Bihar election is on the card. Election Commission has already been, and now they have announced many times that they are working on it. They are looking at world examples because they have to learn lessons from there. They looked at South Korea, Poland, Israel, and very recently on the 5th of August in Sri Lanka. And if all these countries have conducted elections efficiently with all the COVID precautions, so there is no question that the Election Commission of India cannot. And only a couple of days ago, they have issued guidelines on COVID. No doubt that they will be able to do it. The other issue was, can they be postponed because of COVID emergency? Well, Constitution of India doesn't provide for any other emergency except 3: war, external aggression, or internal rebellion. So obviously COVID is none of the 3. So that option is not available. Another option is that the Government of India imposes precedence rule under Article 356 on a state, for which also there has to be some ground which is a breakdown of constitutional machinery in the state, which is also not the case here. And Government of India cannot use that article very loosely, as Supreme Court has come down heavily on such instances in the past.
But there is this concern about whether small parties will be able to have an equal playing field. They don't have those wherewithals like big parties which can manage state-of-the-art things to carry on their virtual campaigns. So, how do you?
That is not a new problem. This has been around for a long time. Now, richer parties always have an advantage. Ruling party always has an advantage. Even before COVID, the 2014 election was a social media election, high-tech election. Now, BJP was the leader in this, and they use, giant screens and holograms and all that. So they've been using it. So COVID or no COVID, that problem exists. So therefore, to talk about it in today's context is irrelevant. Surely there is a disadvantage. And at the same time, we see that incumbent government with their advantage, they have been falling also. That's why there is change of government all the time happening. So it has some weight, but not very decisive.
So now I'd like to come back to a very fundamental question that our electoral system has been facing, that of under-representation of some groups in the country because of the electoral first past the post system as compared to the proportional representation.
Yes.
So, what do you say about how whether there's a need at the high time that we rectified this?
Well, if you are referring to underrepresentation of a religious community, there is no solution because religious communities are not separately recognized under the constitution. There cannot be a special treatment for them. But if you are talking of underrepresentation of certain political parties, and I was always a votary of first past the post system. I had written a book called An Undocumented Wonder, The Making of the Great Indian Election, which I published in the middle of 2014 election, in which I examined all the electoral systems, gave the pros and cons of all of them, and argued for first past the post as the best and most practical and simple system, which we have followed, picked up from in UK, and we have followed for all these years. But at the end of the election, when I was publishing the third edition of my book, I had to change my opinion. Because what happened in 2014 was that one party got 20% vote and 0 seat, BSP.
Yes.
With 20% vote share and 0 seat, I thought it is not fair. It doesn't go in favor of representative democracy, and I should look at the proportional representation system more carefully. Then I've been writing about it ever since that, arguing for it, because we have seen some forms of proportional representation in different parts of the country. We find worldwide the prevalence of the two systems is almost equal. Then we feel that German model is perhaps the best, which is a mixed system. Half the seats are through first past the post because it has its advantages. Other half are proportional, which means a political party gets some seats in proportion to the vote share. Now, if you look at India's model, BSP with 20% vote share ending up with 0 seat would not be the case if we had a proportional representation. Some seats will be given to them. And I think it is only fair that every political party has a voice in parliament or Vidhan Sabha. So I'm building a case for this, and I'm joining that debate quite actively.
There is one more concern which was aired during the last general elections, that of the use of EVMs. The opposition alleged that these machines were tampered with, and while the government maintained that there was no question, though there was no scope that these machines can be tampered with. So, which one would you favor most, ballot paper or machines?
Look, election is entirely Election Commission's domain. Government of India should not have even defended the EVM, because if a ruling party or any party, ruling party starts defending, it raises suspicion. Election Commission was enough to defend it, and I have defended it all these years, 6 years in the Election Commission and 6 years thereafter. So now EVM, they have only improved over the last 20 years. They have proved to be very, very dependable. Nobody has been able to prove that they have been manipulated. They only say that there is a possibility because every machine can be manipulated, the theoretical possibility. In any case, when I was in the Election Commission and I remember in 2010, June, when I took over, the anti-EVM controversy was at its peak. BJP was leading that opposition, and they had written a book, Democracy in Danger, by GVL Narasimha Rao, and with a foreword by Mr. L.K. Advani. So at that point, Election Commission is the guardian of the electoral process. We take all this criticism very sportingly because we feel that this is in our interest to make sure that people's doubts are set at rest. So we decided to call a meeting of all political parties in October 2010. And now we asked them what their concerns were. All of them said that if a VVPAT, voter verifiable paper audit trail, is introduced, they will be all right. Believe me, in that meeting itself, then and there, we decided that we'll go for VVPAT. Immediately, we ordered the two companies who make these machines for us to start developing a VVPAT, which they did. Extensive trials were conducted, and then a final dry run of an election was done, full-fledged election in 5 different cities of the country, representing 5 climate zones. Trivandrum as a coastal area, Jaisalmer desert, Leh the mountain, Delhi is a normal city, and believe me, even Cherrapunji, the city with the largest rainfall. And now finally, after the Supreme Court judgment, the matter, as you know, had gone up to Supreme Court. They also said that VVPAT is very dependable, reliable, let's go with that. And 5 EVMs per assembly segment of a constituency, like Lok Sabha has 3, 4, 5 assembly segments. So every assembly segment will 5 machines will be checked through the VVPAT. Thousands, there were 20,000, 21,000 were checked, and not one discrepancy occurred. So VVPAT is cross-checking the machine. So after that, the doubt should have been set at rest. However, there was some debate about the figures not tallying, where I think Election Commission should have been more prompt in coming out, because there is no question of figures getting delayed, and there is no question of any discrepancy. So any delay or any silence of the Election Commission becomes problematic. Rumors start floating. So Election Commission should be a little more careful and prompt in dispelling all such notions.
There is one more concern. There are so many different views about this public funding of elections. Which one do you favor? Whether you favor public funding or like the existing system?
Well, I favor public funding of not of elections, but of political parties, because suppose we just start giving money to the candidates, and bogus candidates will also start standing because it's just free, government is giving you money. I have pleaded and have written extensively on the subject that political parties should be funded based on their performance. For every vote I have calculated, if you will give them 100 rupees, so it was like 2014 general election was 54 crore votes. This time I think it is 61 or 62 crore votes. So at 100 rupees, 6,200 crore rupees should be given to political parties, 100 rupees per vote. Now this is one figure which cannot be fudged. There is no way that you can fudge it, because voting figures are sacrosanct. So give it to every party. Even if one person get just one vote, give him 100 rupees, let him go and have his ice cream, but give it to everybody. But then public donation, private donation should be totally banned. And accounts of the political party should be audited by the CAG or a CAG approved auditor. So, because then accounting has to be transparent if it is public funding. So I think that will take care of a lot of political corruption, because if you take money, crores of rupees from a company, so there is no free lunch. They want something in return. And what is the return that they would expect? Licenses, contracts, even postings and transfers of officers of their choice, even appointment of a minister of their choice. So that will lead to crony capitalism, and that needs to be checked. And I think this is a reform which should be considered. I'm surprised that I've been talking about it for 7 years, but no political party has yet formally come out in support of it or even debated it. Now, 70% of European countries have this system. It's working extremely well. So if it can work well in Europe, why can't it work well in India? So we need to look at that seriously. But I think political parties are not really serious about ending corruption. They enjoy this confusion and they create more confusion.
Mr. Quraishi, are you in favor of the proposal for compulsory voting? And do you think this none of the above option has been a good change? So to really letting the people express their views about the performance of the system and their representatives?
Well, I'm definitely against compulsory voting for more than one reason, because number one, compulsion and democracy don't go together. Your right to vote includes your right not to vote. In fact, interestingly, there are several judgments of the Supreme Court holding that the right to vote is not your constitutional right. But you will be surprised to know that in the Nota judgment, Supreme Court has held that your right not to vote is a fundamental right, because it's an expression of your, it's a freedom of expression, and they've elevated it to higher than your right to vote. So therefore, that on constitutional ground is not possible. Secondly, it is not even practical in a country like India, because if somebody doesn't vote, he or she has violated a law, and for a violation of law, he or she should be punished. And even if the punishment is a token fine of 1 rupee, we are a civilized country, we are not a banana republic, so we will follow a due procedure of law. Now, what is the due process of law? We will give you a court notice. Okay, look, you did not vote, why should you not be punished? Because even 1 rupee fine is a punishment, and a punishment can be awarded through a due process. Now, in the last general election, about 300 million, 30 crore people had not voted. 30 crores. So 30 crores of people will get notice from us, court notice from us for action. Now, we have 2 crore court cases pending, and the entire judicial system is in shambles. Now, imagine that 30 crore will be added after every election. So it is absolutely not practical.
From time to time, one demand has also been raised by different groups that the way delimitation of constituencies has been done is unfavorable to them. So, do you have anything to say?
Well, I
on this?
have been hearing about it, and in fact, I think Sachar committee was the first to point this out. And although the prima facie and on paper, the system is foolproof in the sense that a delimitation commission is appointed by the government, headed by a judge of the Supreme Court or a former judge of the Supreme Court, and it has 3 members, one serving an election commissioner of India, and the third member is the election commissioner of the state concerned wherever the delimitation is happening, and it goes for public hearing. And there are lots of complaints. There were complaints that some constituencies were delimited in such a way that some sections, particularly like minorities in some cases or scheduled castes, they were harmed. I mean, a Muslim majority district, for instance, became a minority district. It was split into 2. So that is the kind of thing which created doubt. So what the Muslims should do, the scheduled caste should do when the delimitation commission is doing its work, it does public hearings, they should proactively participate in it. They should represent the case. And I think one amendment which the commission itself should consider, that there is a reservation of seats for scheduled tribes and scheduled castes. Now, scheduled tribes is almost mathematical. Suppose there are 2 constituencies in a state, so those 2 constituencies will be selected according to the scheduled tribe population. The highest 2 will automatically become reserved. Whereas for scheduled caste constituency, it is not the highest 2. The commission has a discretion to keep rotating from here to there. Now that discretion is wrong, and that can create doubt. Even if it is used very judiciously and honestly, it does can create doubts in people's minds. So that should also be the mathematical. If there are two reserved constituencies, the highest scheduled caste population, wherever it is, should get it, because any discretion used can be misunderstood.
Lastly, Mr. Quraishi, we would like you to tell us your own assessment of your personal contribution to the Election Commission and some of the challenges you faced in the conduct of election in this country of 1 billion plus people.
Well, of course, India's election is the biggest challenge, not merely for its size, but the enormity of its problems. All kinds of problems in the world. In terms of magnitude, Indian election is equivalent to 90 countries of the world. And the problems of those 90 countries are all rolled into one. We find in India militancy, terrorism, caste conflict, tribal conflict, all kinds of tensions, problems, geographical constraints, all those things. And but at the same time, we are so experienced and trained that we have been conducting elections with great finesse, which is acknowledged worldwide. In fact, Hillary Clinton had was publicly called it a global gold standard. As regards my personal contribution, I am very proud of 3-4 things. One, that when I took over as CEC, I gave myself two challenges. One, money power. Second, voter apathy. So money power was a huge problem. So I immediately created 2 new divisions. One for expenditure monitoring, the other for voter education. And both these divisions have done extremely well. We have seized thousands of crores of rupees in drugs and liquor in the process of monitoring expenditure. Things are much under control, but still I would say that our victory on money power is still eluding us, because they have come up with new modus operandi. In my book on election, which I mentioned, an undocumented wonder, the making of the great Indian election, I had mentioned 40 modus operandi of abuse of money power. The 40 which we had identified till then. No, politicians are smarter. They would have identified many more ways of cheating or taking money to the people. So we have to, it is a cat and mouse game. But voter apathy we handled very successfully. Voter education division was set up. Our sweep program, systematic voter education for electoral participation, has done wonders. Every election, and this was set up in 2010 in Bihar election, before Bihar election, we had the highest ever turnout in Bihar's history, and more women turned out than men. So these are 2 major achievements, and we have not looked back. Every election in every state and the 2 general elections have given us highest ever turnout all through. So voter education has led to participation revolution, and that I'm very happy it was my contribution. Could be because my subject of interest and my PhD was in communication. I understood the value and importance of communication. Second thing was that sharing our experience with the world, becoming a world leader. I had set up an institute in the Election Commission called India International Institute of Democracy and Election Management, IIIDEM. And there was a lot of resistance from the government, from the law ministry, from many vested interests, but we overcame all that. I'm very happy to tell you that in 6 years, we have trained 85 countries of the world. We have become world leader. It has become our soft power. And imagine, it's very short-sighted and narrow-minded people were opposing it and sabotaging it in every possible way. But we went ahead and set it up in 85 countries, and there is a beeline, because we have still not moved to our new campus because of the shortage of space. We have been operating from the top floor of the election commission, but now the building is almost ready. Once we move into the new campus, you will find many more countries coming to us, and I think India should be proud of it. Third thing which I'm very proud of is I introduced National Voters Day. Every 25th of January, 25th January, which is the Founders' Day of Election Commission, a day before India became a republic, we started National Voters Day. And the idea is that those who become 18 on 1st of January, we should locate them beforehand, and from 1st January, the first day of the calendar year, and 25th January, all the new young voters, first time voters, they should be registered, their pictures taken, their cards made and distributed. And on 25th January, we have 8 lakh functions across the country where these cards are distributed to them. This has been so successful. Every year 3 crores, 4 crores new voters, young voters get to vote. And also when they come to take their voter card, they take a pledge that every election they will surely come out and vote honestly without any consideration. So this is what has led to the voters' participation.
There's a lot of enthusiasm naturally in the young population. Thank you so much, Mr. Quraishi. We are so grateful to you that you talked to us about some of the very pressing issues facing our electoral system and the Election Commission of India. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.